Alrighty. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Learn to Defend Cyber. My name is Joseph. We're going to be working on TryHackMe's Advent of Cyber Day 7 today. I've got the machines loading up right now so that we don't have to sit there and watch paint dry. And while we wait on that, we can definitely... I would love to start off this episode by first and foremost thanking Tyler Ramsey. Tyler, he's a great person, amazing YouTuber, probably the best pen tester on the platform. But in all seriousness, Tyler, thank you for pointing your community to my channel. I'm very, very honored, and I hope I do right by y'all by making entertaining walkthroughs and just giving you some valuable information. For those of us who are new to the channel, basic premise is I am in a junior role in cybersecurity, right? And my goal is to advance my skill set and to learn things. And I figured, why not do it with the community, right? Why not show off learning to some other people? Because we have a lot of YouTube channels on YouTube with YouTubers who have been in the field for 5-10 years, maybe more, who are experts in their craft and they know everything and they can do everything. And sure, they hit some snags and there's bumps in the roads. Sorry, there's some chatters flowing in. They hit some snags and there's some bump in the roads, but they make it look smooth, right? And I figured, why not start a channel dedicated to showing people that, yeah, there's a long process to learning all of this, and not everybody knows everything, even if they do have a job in cyber, right? Would love to welcome in Kira. Said they can't join, but they wanted to show their support. Thank you. Rhonda, always great to see you. Thank you for showing up every day. We got Jerry in the house. What's going on, Jerry? Saying I suck at Linux. The little bit of a joke we were talking earlier. Alright, looks like we got the machine spun up, so I'm going to go ahead and pivot over the scene. And it's not selected. I always do this. Alright, try this again. We will expand this so that we don't have to squint our eyes and we can see what's going on. It looks like we got ourselves an Ubuntu machine that has the sidebar in the middle of the machine for some reason. So what is today's room about? I have not looked at anything other than starting the machine. It looks like we're doing AWS log analysis. That's a pretty fun one. I'm not big into the AWS environment. I've actually done more work in Azure than anything. So it'll be nice to touch on a topic that I'm not using every day. Looks like we're looking at CloudTrail specifically. CloudTrail is a great it's a great tool. I want to say by default 90 days of logs. I think in JSON. I'm sure we'll be told in the room. These rooms do a very good job of laying out what is what when going through the rooms. So we got started with a nice little poem here, and we all know that my reading skills are the best, so we're going to try and get through this. As SOCMUS approached, so did the need to provide I'm already doing it, see? To provide those without with something to read. Care for wares tried. They made it their mission. A gift for all wares, a SOCMUS tradition. Although they had some, they still needed more. To pick up some books, they'd head to the store. The town's favorite books would no doubt make them jolly. They ticked off the list as they filled up the trolley. We don't call them trolleys. We call them buggies where I'm at. But for sake of Ryan, trolleys. With the last book ticked off, the shopping was done. When asked for their card, they were handed them one. Or the ware handed them one. I'm sorry, he said, as the shop clerk declined. I cannot sell you these books, as your card has declined. The ware put them back as they walked in confusion. How could this be? An attack, an intrusion? And when they logged on, the ware got a scare. To find the donations, they just weren't there. So it sounds like that either somebody had access to their bank account or maybe something else happened. Let's keep reading. So it sounds like we're gonna monitoring an AWS environment. Careforware's infrastructure runs in the cloud, so they chose AWS as their cloud service provider. Instead of their workloads running on physical machines, they run on virtualized instances in the cloud. Yep. So there are three main cloud platforms. There's AWS, Azure, and Google Public Cloud, or GCP as it's sometimes called. Ron is agreeing it's buggy. Justin in chat, moments like these, I'm glad I did a decade of speech therapy. Yeah. So the three main platforms, usually it's actually two. Google Cloud exists, but it's still not as used as AWS or Azure. You usually find one or the other, or a combination of all three, or the main two. CloudWatch, we can see CloudWatch is kind of like a SIM. We talked about SIMs on day 2 and 3. They're security information event monitoring systems. They aggregate logs and then they generate alerts based on different rules, whether those be custom or baked into the SIM. And it does a little bit more than that. It has monitoring. It monitors your applications and your systems, the metrics, different configurations, and then you can set alarms. It says that you can make your own alarms for those metrics. You can use CloudWatch to set alarms for spending. So say you have a server and you set a spending bracket and you don't want it to go over $1,000 a day, then you can have an alert and it'll monitor for that, and it'll generate alert and tell you that, hey, you've gone over your budget. And then hopefully you're able to respond to that and not end up spending thousands of dollars, unless that's your plan. If you're a big business, you better get ready for that, because these VMs do not come cheap. CloudWatch logs make it easy for users to access, monitor, and store the logs from all various sources. As I said, it's kind of a log aggregator. You have 3 different types of logs. You have log events, log streams, and log groups. A log event is a single log entry. Log streams are collections of logs from a single source. So, say for instance, you would have different sources such as your S3 buckets or your IAM or your I mean, those are really, you would have different sources like your S3 buckets, your IAM, and then I can't really think of a third example off the top of my head, but those are the main 2 that I've ever messed with. Log groups are a collection of log streams. So when you gather a bunch of streams into a group, that's a log group. I mean, it's literally just a group of streams. I mean, CloudTrail. CloudTrail, as I was saying earlier, that is your actual logging application in the cloud, for AWS at least. It monitors actions, tracks using another service called CloudTrail. Actions can be those taken by a user, a role granted to a user, giving them certain permissions. As for instance, you would have your administrator role, that's like Keys to the Kingdom, or an AWS service, and are recorded as events in the AWS CloudTrail. Essentially, any action the user takes is monitored, so anything via the GUI console or even the command line is logged and then stored. I was right earlier, it is JSON formatted. JSON, when you look at the different markup languages or query languages, you have 2. I know on the CYSA in particular, they point out XML and JSON. XML is the one with the angle brackets, and then JSON is the one with the curly brackets. We got Brent B. How's it going? Welcome. So let's see. CloudTrail is enabled by default, thankfully. Event history. When users access CloudTrail, they will see an option for event history. Event history is a record of the actions that have taken place in the last 90 days. These records are queryable and can be filtered on attributes such as a resource type. The trails can be thought of as the default. Okay, so the event history can be thought of as the trail, included out of the box. However, users can provide custom trails, so you can go above that 90 days, and I'm sure it probably costs more. And then they are the single access points. So you have 2 different single access points. Like CloudWatch is a little more about like different. I feel like it's more about specific logs, whereas CloudTrail is all of the logs by any kind of user or service, whereas CloudWatch is a little more specific. So, as mentioned, CloudTrail helps capture and record actions taken. These actions could be interactions with any number of AWS services. S3 and IAM. So S3 is simple storage system or simple storage service. Think of it as a big storage device in the cloud. And then IAM, identity and access management. That is about user provisioning, user permissions, service access, all kinds of things. Yep, as it says here, creation of identities and access permissions. So, what is JQ? I've never actually heard of JQ, so let's look at this together. JQ. It mentioned that cloud trails are JSON formatted and ingested in large volumes. This machine-readable format can be tricky to extract meaning from. Yeah, if I'm sure we have an example somewhere of some JSON. I assume that they probably pulled the logs down for us to look at. We can try and find that JSON. And if we were to just cat out that file and look at it in the terminal, it's going to look like the file puked in the terminal. Not in so much the fact that it's unreadable, but in the fact that there's so much information you may as well close the terminal and walk away. So it sounds like JQ is going to help us query this JSON. Similar to command line tools like sed, awk, grep, which are just different ways to find specific strings. JQ is a lightweight and flexible command line processor that can be used on JSON. So yes, it is here to help us query JSON. So it looks like we have some example JSON here. So as I mentioned earlier, you have your curly brackets. This is a curly bracket right here. And then you have different attributes in your JSON. So it defines, much like XML that we talked about yesterday, you can kind of think of it in that same file folder system. It's not quite the same, but you have your attribute and then your value, right? So you have, it's a book title. What is the book title? It's Where's Wally. You have a genre. That's an attribute. What's the value of that attribute? Children. Attribute value, page count, that you can have numbers, and doesn't just have to be strings. And then this is the start and finish of the array. JQ takes two inputs, the filter that you want to use, followed by the input file. We start our JQ filter with a dot, which just tells JQ that we are accessing the current input. From here, we want to access the array of values stored in our JSON with the brackets, making our filter dot brackets. So let's look at the following command. So this is our raw JSON, and it looks like JQ takes it and kind of beautifies it a little bit. Now you can do this with other applications. For instance, CyberChef. You can actually use CyberChef. We've used this a couple days in a row now. CyberChef. You can use it to beautify code, XML and JSON. Once we access the array, we can grab elements, so it looks like we can look for specific elements. They're probably called elements in JSONs and not attributes, so I might have been calling them wrong things. So it looks like we can look for specific elements and then list those elements, right? So if we were looking for book title specifically, we would put .book title, and then it would just list out the different book titles. So it would access these values that we stored in the JSON. It's not nicer. It's a lot nicer to look at, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's a lot easier to look at. Now this is pretty simple JSON. There's not a lot going on here, so just reading the raw JSON, and honestly, would not be too bad. But we'll have to find an example of what some complex JSON looks like, or at least when there's just a lot of it. The peculiar case of Care4Ware's dry funds. Now that we've refreshed our knowledge about CloudTrail and JQ, let's investigate the peculiar case of Care4Ware's dry funds. The responsible for Care4Ware's charity drive gave us the following regarding the incident. So this is essentially our ticket. We don't have an official ticket, but this is the information we need to perform our investigation. Investigations are all about context, so let's figure out what it is. We sent a link out on the 28th of November, so we have an important date, the 28th of November, to everyone in our network that points to a flyer with the details of our charity. So the flyer is stored on an S3 bucket. The details include the account number to receive donations. We received many donations on the first day, so on the first day it was working. Everybody was sending donations, and it went to the correct account. Let's see, maybe the link got changed, or it could have been the account number or the flyer, who knows. But there were none from the second day on. So something happens on the second day, so November 29th. Something happens on November 29th. Or late in the day, the 28th. I talked to multiple people who claimed they detailed a respectable sum. One showed his transaction, and I noticed the account number was wrong. So the account number on the flyer was changed. I checked the link, and it was still the same. Okay, so the link did not change. We weren't pointed to another bucket. When I opened the link, the digital flyer was the same except for the account number. So what this sounds like to me is it sounds like somebody accessed our bucket and either edited the PDF that we had, the flyer, and changed the account number, or deleted the old flyer and replaced it with an identical one up to the account number. McSkitty recalls putting the digital flyer. Oh, so it's not even it's a PNG, so definitely had to have put an edited one in an AWS S3 bucket named Wareville Care for Wares. So that's the name of our S3 bucket. Good to note. Let's assist McSkitty by finding out more about that link. I already started the bucket, and we reviewed the information as we read it earlier. We know the day, November 28th. Link was set out with the resource, and the resource was correct. We were getting donations. The next day, we were not. We talked to a donator who said that they donated money, showed us a receipt, and then showed us the flyer that they donated to, and it had the wrong account number. We started the machine. Let's examine the CloudTrail logs related to Care for Wares S3 bucket. So this is what a typical S3 log entry looks like. You can see there's a lot more going on in here than your typical, or this earlier example at least, right? So there's a few things we can break down here. The ARN is kind of like a username. We have Wareville Collector, the user Wareville Collector. It's not that simple, but to simplify it, it's a bit like a username and an identity. This is their access key. This is what they would have used on either the command line or the GUI to access the resource. And then this is the specific username. So as I said, this is basically like a long username. It's not quite that simple. And then we have events happening here. Looks like it's listing objects. So we come into the environment and we list what's going on in the bucket. So you can see we're targeting s3.amazonaws.com. So we accessed this bucket, and now we're listing to see what's going on in there. Somebody on Linux accessing the AOC CloudTrail Wareville bucket. And it looks like they came in earlier. It's the same one. I wanted to see if I could identify if they came in through the command line or the GUI. But I'm not seeing anything that tells me that. At least I'm not able to identify it right off the bat. Alright, what else do we have? We have some more requests. I think this is just listing out, and then we have an AWS API call that happens. And then we have these fields defined for us. We kind of talked about it, right? You have your user identity, the event time, the event type, the event source, where did it come from, event name, what specific action occurred, list object, get bucket object. So getting the bucket object would actually pull the resource for you. Source IP address, where did it come from? Good thing to have. It is easy to change where you're attacking from, so it's not quite the best identifier, but it is something. It would be considered an indicator of attack. User agent, where they performed it from, Firefox, AWS. Oh, I mentioned earlier they were on Linux, so. And then what parameters? You can see the request parameters. Let's see, can we find a good example of that? Yeah, and you can see here it's listing out what it's accessing, that bucket on that host. So it sounds like we are ready to start diving in. Logs are stored in Wareville logs directory. So let's go look at the Wareville logs directory. Make this a little bit bigger. And then zoom in using Control-Shift+. Go ahead and list it out. CD Wareville logs. You can use tab to autocomplete. And we have CloudTrail log.json. Now, we could just use the cat command, which allows you to get the contents of a file and read what's in it. Log.json. Takes a moment, and now we have all of this. Now, zoom out. It's still not really going to be readable. It's not letting me zoom out. Think things are lagging a little bit. Welcome, Jose. Glad to see you here. So we can see here we have a lot of information. This is a lot. And this is why we would use JQ to prettify this or beautify it and parse it and get specific things out, because this is a lot of information. You could, theoretically, go through and read everything here. But you're probably going to get a headache. Let's clear the screen and see what they want us to do. Maybe I can zoom out a little bit now that the screen is clear. Does not look like it. Nope. Alright. It's not letting me. By using the guide above, we can read the example log. Okay. Tells us information we identified a little bit earlier, what kind of IP it came from, what they were using to access it. AWS software development kit. So it looks like they did use the command line, possibly. So we went ahead and looked at the log, and now they're giving us commands to use JQ. And we can break down what's happening with this a little bit. So the R flag tells to output the results in raw instead of JSON. And we are selecting the CloudTrail log.json. Records tells it to parse the records in the container element, or in the records container element. And then we have what looks like our filter. So we're selecting an event source from the S3 bucket. So we want to get the logs from the S3 buckets. And then anything from the bucket name Wareville Care for Wares. Care for Wares. So let's see what that looks like. Seeing if I can get it to zoom out for me. Alright, there we go. Don't want to zoom out too far. Oh boy. But we want to make it a little bit easier to read. So, this is much, much easier to read than that file that we catted out. We can see glitch. Well, we got glitch. We know over the past few days, glitch may be causing some trouble, but as we've done some investigating, malware actually was taking glitch's identity. So we'll figure out what's going on. We can't make any assumptions. BSEC today is all about going through AWS CloudTrail and investigating logs. So it looks like we came in through the S3 console. We accessed the bucket name Wareville Care for Wares. And let's see what else we did. What did we do in that bucket? Looks like we listed objects, so we can see here an event happens where we listed the objects. Glitch was in the bucket listing the objects. And what else did we do while we were in here? We put an object in there. Okay. So we know that the glitch put a file in the bucket. Just scanning to see. This is a nice indicator of attack, by the way. Just taking that IP, jotting it down, 5394.201.69. And we can use that to identify at least this session until they change their IP address, because you could just use a VPN or a proxy to go ahead and do that. Really, really easy. So it looks like on this access control list, that's what ACL stands for, bucket owner full control. It looks like Glitch has full control over this bucket, which means he could do anything. And he puts in Wareville bank account QR.png. Okay, so he put a new PNG in there. We know that the file was replaced or altered, so it looks like it was possibly replaced. What else do we have here that's any kind of an interesting... We have some pre-flight requests happening. And we come back in. It looks like he's coming back into the bucket. And this is happening on the 28th, by the way. Did not say this earlier. But it looks like the 28th at 3 is when that that PNG was put in. What else do we have? We have quite a lot of information here I'm trying to go over. I'm sure that the walkthrough on the page probably breaks it down for us. Alright, doesn't look like there's really much else. I mean, he's listing the objects again, but outside of that, there's not really much going on of interest. I'm listening while I shop. Still gonna offer you new image file? No, I don't think so. No worries, the pain. Hope you do well when you try and attempt this later tonight. So they give us a new command. Looks like this new command has the same... It's selecting the same bucket, but now it's actually grabbing the event time, event name, user identity, and then giving us some NA responses just in case there's no fields. And then I would assume that this is just going to narrow down what we're using a bit so that it's easier to read. Yes. See, this is even easier than we had before. So it looks like we can really get specific with this JQ. Now, we can break down what's going on here. I have not used JQ before, so it would be helpful for me to read this as well. The piped filter, so this is filters, yep. Pipe filter uses the command's output and formats it to only include the defined keys such as event time, event name, user identity, and username. Good. That will help us instead of having to read through all the different things. As you can see, it took me a moment to read through those things because there's just a lot there. But now we've gotten specific. Note that the string //NA is included purely for formatting reasons. This means that if the defined key does not have a value, it will just put NA instead. I'm sure that will help stop you from getting any kind of errors. So let's upgrade our command with additional parameters because we want to make this even easier to read. And it looks like, I'm assuming with the word column in there, that we're going to make a table. So we check our keys, then we pipe it to @tsv, which sets each array element, the output processed after the filters, as a line of tab separated values, okay? And then it takes that and beautifies it by putting all tabs and aligning in columns. So yeah, we're getting a pseudo table here. Go ahead and put this command in and see what we got. Oh yeah, that's much easier to read. Event time, event name, username, bucket name, key, source IP. This is much, much easier to read than what we were looking at just a moment ago. And we can see that they list the objects twice, put an object in, it puts in that PNG, pre-flight request, which I don't actually know what that does, so let's go ahead and Google it. So a pre-flight request is automatically issued by a browser, and in normal cases, front-end developers don't need to... Let's see. Is a CORS request that checks to see if the CORS protocol is understood. I don't know what the CORS protocol is. Cross-origin resource sharing. So... I don't think it's relevant to what we're doing. No, this doesn't look relevant. This looks like front-end development or some form of HTTP nonsense that we don't have to work with today. You make it look easy. I have to backtrack to hear the explanation. Good job though, easy to follow along. I'm just reading. I do these days blind, so I'm relying on a little bit on the experience I have, and then of course what they give you to do the room. I think if they didn't give me instructions, I probably would not be able to make it through these rooms. Maybe some of them. There was a couple days where I was like, okay, yeah, I know what's going on, but today, interacting with these S3 bucket logs, no, there's no way. I mean, I know a lot of these event fields, but I didn't know what JQ was. This is a new tool to me. It's all about reading and learning. That's what we're here for. Okay, so they give us some questions to mull over. How many log entries in there? Which user initiated the most of these log entries? Which specific action did the user perform based on the event name field? Were there any specific files edited? What is the timestamp of the log entries, and what is the source IP related to those log entries? Looking at the results, 5 logged events seem to be related to the Wareville Care for Wares bucket, and almost all are related to the user glitch. We see that glitch uploaded the file accountqr.png, but received no donations. This seems to coincide with the information we received about no donations being made 2 days after the link was set out. McSkitty is sure there is no user glitch, so somebody had to have made the user glitch. But McSkitty is saying that they didn't make it and that they didn't exist in there. There's no one in City Hall with that name either. The only person that McSkitty knows with that name is the hacker who keeps to himself. So now we want to dig into that anomalous user a bit. They give us a command, and we're probably going to start looking at the IAM. Yep. No, we're just looking at glitch and seeing everything that glitch did. In no specific resource, we want to look at all logs relating to glitch. Let me actually, I don't know if that's going to work. Probably not. Nope. All right. Try it now. So this is all of our logs related to glitch. We have list object, put object, console login, so that we can see them logging in. They look at the Git cost and usage. I guess they're concerned about how much they're spending. List enrollment statuses, describe event aggregates, Git storage lens configuration, looking at some different configs. And then they look at the event cost usage again. So we can see that they're coming from the same address each time. What do we have here? We still want information about what tool and OS were used in the request. I would say that's a good fingerprint, but you can change what request you're making pretty easy by modifying the user agent strings, and there's quite a few different ways to make it look like you're coming from a different thing. I can make everything look like I'm coming from a Mac computer, even though I'm using a Windows computer. So let's paste in that new command they give us. And we can see, I'm gonna have to probably scroll out a little bit here. Makes it everything a little smaller, but makes the table easier to read. So, AWS API call from that IP address to the S3 console from a Linux machine. And then it looks like they actually come from a Macintosh at some point. Those Mac users. You only have two Mac users. You have hackers and you have executives. A joke, obviously, but it is fun to think about. I'm personally not a Mac user. I either use Linux or Windows. And then they're breaking down this command for us a little bit. Okay, so it's actually breaking down some of the results for us. Two user agent values, yeah, we saw that. We have S3 console from a Linux machine, and then we have Mozilla. They actually went on a browser in Mac. Uses a Google Chrome browser within the Mac system. Yep, so we can see they're using Chrome. Experienced attacker can forge these values, but we should not dismiss this information. We can consider it valuable for now. And now we're gonna go look at the IAM because we want to know who or what created this account, and that would be in the IAM, the identity and access management. That's where all of your logs for account creation, permission, etc. would be. What just happened? Oh, I see. I did not put the J. There we go. So we see McSkitty here. They list policies, they get the policies, they create a login profile, they attach a user policy, so they're giving it permissions, and then they create a user down here. So let's look more at that create user action. We're going to query the event name create user specifically. Fix my input here. Not sure why my command got all messed up, but let's try repasting that. It's going to... oh boy. Sorry about that. Running into a little bit of difficulties here. Alright. Let's try again. So we can see we're back to this input we had here. So we have McSkitty. They come in and they create a user, they create glitch. Then they're coming from that IP address we've been seeing, 53.94.201.69. So somebody from the IP address as McSkitty may or may not be McSkitty. McSkitty may be an insider threat, you never know. Is creating glitch. And then looks like they put them in the management group. Right? Is that what's happening there? I don't know. Let's read. Let's find out. We need a filter for attached user policy. That's where you give them permissions to uncover permissions set for the newly created user. So we're going to do the same thing, but instead of looking for create user, we're going to look to see what kind of permissions we gave them. We have McSkitty giving glitch administrator access. That's not good. McSkitty is baffled by these results. She knows that she did not create the anomalous user, so McSkitty is saying they didn't. But can we trust him? I don't know. She doesn't recognize the IP address involved in the events, and she does not use a Mac OS. Two things that are easy to change, but let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say that somebody else is doing it. So she wants to prove her innocence. And how we're going to do that. She suggests that we look closely at the IP address and operating system related to all these anomalous events. So we're going to go ahead and copy this command. Based on the command output, okay, so that's giving us information about the output, but let's break down the command. We're looking for the specific fields: event time, event source, name, username, and the source IP. We're looking specifically for that IP address, and then filtering down for the time, source, name, and user identity, the username, and then giving it some responses for if there are any kind of null fields. Delete all this real quick. Try this again. Not giving us the output for some reason. Looks like we're missing a single tick. Yep, there we go. One missing single tick ruins the whole thing. C pasting issues. No, that's me being bad with Linux. And AV people use Macs. True, AV people do use Macs. I'm a Mac user, but it's all I have right now. Lately, I've been using it to learn hacking. See, Jose? You're proving my point. There's only 2 Mac users. Only 2 Mac users, hackers and executives. And apparently AV people, too. I'll give you that one. That's true. Alright, so we have mere malware coming in from that IP address, and then all of a sudden it's glitch. Glitch comes in, lists the objects, puts that object in from that same IP address, lists the objects, then we have mere malware come back again from that IP address, then McSkitty comes from that IP address, then glitch comes from that IP address. Then we have all McSkitty. And you can see that the events actually go from bottom up. So, looks like... Right? It's messing with me a little bit because it counts down days, and then it goes to the 28th. So, mere malware, then glitch. That's strange. Why is it counting down days and then goes to the 28th, or it goes to the 28th and then randomly just counts up to the 26th? That's strange. Let's focus on each user and see if they always work from that IP. Okay. Username equals placeholder. While gathering information for each user. So placeholder, I'm assuming, is literally just a placeholder. It's almost like a wildcard, I assume. Did I not copy the whole command? I did it again. Apparently I did not copy the full string the first time. I don't know what I'm doing that makes it keep pasting like this. I think I'm hitting control before I do it. I'm like hitting control twice and it's making it mess up a little bit. Alright. Third time's the charm. Oh, we're supposed to actually fill out the placeholder. We're supposed to put the usernames in. It helps if I read a little bit. So we can do McSkitty. That should be spelled correctly. So it looks like we have McSkitty coming in from a Mac, and then originally coming in from a Windows device. You see 22, 23, 25, 26, 24. I missed that one because I can count real good. Coming in from a Windows machine. Does it have their IP address? Did we filter for that? Yes, we did. Probably gonna have to zoom out. Oh yeah. Big old table. Zoom back in. So this may be hard to read a little bit, but we can see McSkitty actually comes from 31 to 10, 15 to 79 at first, and then they come in from that 59, 94, 201, 629 that we've identified to be the malicious IP address. So let's run that command. You can use the up arrow to go back, by the way, to the previous command that you've used. And let's look at glitch and Mare malware. I'm actually more curious about Mare malware. Is there a space in his name? I might have to scroll back up and find out. Okay, how did they have his username done here? It's Mare underscore malware. Okay, so let's try this again, but do it right this time. All right, we have Mare malware coming in from the same IP address on a Mac. You can see that they come in from that 53, 94, 201, 69 each time. Check the filter to see if it's ascending or descending. It doesn't state. Okay, so we know glitch was always coming in from that 53, 94, 201, 69, but we can double check and make sure. It's always good to confirm. Never assume. Never assume an investigation. It's always bad. Yep, looks like they always come from that 53, 94, 201, 69. But they are not always coming. Let me zoom this out a little bit. They're not always coming from a Mac device, funnily enough. They're coming from a Linux device at some point. But originally, they come from the Mac device. Definite evidence. McSkitty suggests gathering stronger proof that the person was behind this incident. That person. Okay. Hold on. I might have to take a step back and read what happened back here. Who are they trying to assume did it? I assume they're assuming Mare malware did it, because that's what I'm assuming. Does not look like... They're just trying to figure out who did it, so... Wareville Bank cooperated with us and provided their database logs. So we can go look at the rds.log file. So it looks like we're looking for the word insert in the RDS log. So grep, just a tool to find strings or values in a file. We can see actions being taken here. Insert into Whereville bank transactions. We find this is an account number on the 28th. We have donations, some very, very generous donations, mind you. And then it changes. Changes right here. We can see that it changes at 3/23/02 on the 28th to Mayor Malware's account. So Mayor Malware started getting the account, or all the donations. Explain all insert queries from the RDS log pertained to who receives the donations made by the town people. That's what we assumed. And then it gives us some redacted here. I'm assuming that his account number is a flag. As shown above, the Care for Wares Fund received all donations until it was changed to Mayor Malware's, and confirms that the assumptions made during the S3 investigation was related to Mayor Malware. And we can see timestamps that they've highlighted where the last donation was, where the bank details update happened, and the first donation was received by Mayor Malware. So, what is the other activity made by the user glitch except aside from the list object that was put object? We saw that earlier. What is the source related? Source IP related to the S3 bucket activities of the user glitch. We can go copy paste that from earlier. It's in one of these commands. Or we can just go back into the record and find it. It's that 5394 address right here. Okay. Based on the event source field, what AWS service generates the console logon event? So let's go back and scroll all the way back here. Console logon. We saw console logon earlier. Console logon happens in the event name. Based on event source field, what AWS service? Oh, that's the IAM service, right? No, it comes from signin.amazonaws.com. Okay, that's good to know. signin.amazonaws.com, right? Yep. So that's that flag. When did the anomalous user trigger the console logon event? And they're asking for a specific time. And they're looking for this time. I do not know if they're looking for the full string or not. I assume they are. Yep, they were looking for the Z to be included as well. It happened on the 28th at 3:21. What was the name of the user that McSkitty created? That was Glitch. What type of access was it assigned? We saw earlier that it was the administrator, but we got to find the full name of that. Full name was administrator access. Let's type it out for brevity's sake. What IP address does Mayor Malware typically use to log in? It's the same one from earlier. We gotta go find McSkitty's actual IP address from when we looked earlier as well. She comes from the 31-210-1579 address. And then what is the bank account number for Mayor Malware? That would be this one right here. We can see where it changed to his bank account number. And then there's a log universe room, which actually greatly interests me. I would love to... Oh, I unlocked a freeze streak. Or streak freeze. Wow. I can talk. Interesting. I am definitely interested in this room. So apparently if you want to learn more, you check out this room as well. The log universe room. And that brings a conclusion to today. Today was actually a very long one compared to the last 2 days, especially yesterday's. Yesterday's felt very short. Yep. As BSEC says, don't assume when dealing with logs, follow the breadcrumbs. Absolutely. Assumptions are the mother of all. Never assume in an investigation, especially an investigation that may go to court. We should always assume, this is when you can assume that any investigation can go to court. That way you can never assume any information about a case or any kind of incident that you are working. You always want to have cold hard facts. You always want to record your evidence. I know we did not today, but typically you would want to record your evidence in some form of timeline, with screenshots and copies of your files and your logs, so that you have absolute proof that something happened, just in case anything gets altered behind you by a glitch or malicious actor. So, AWS. It was a good time digging through the logs. We saw how they are stored in JSON. We use JQ, which is a nice new tool that I would love to learn how to use some more, and it is nice that I know of its existence now. Beautifies some JSON for us. And we were able to use it to query the different resources, the different values in the AWS logs, right? And Mayor Malware is up to no good. He took all those donations. I'm wondering, I don't know what tomorrow is going to be, but I wonder if at any point we're going to do a hack back on Mayor Malware, but that may not be in the Christmas spirit. You know, Christmas is all about forgiveness, right? Forgiveness and presents and family and all the different Christmas values, but I would like to hack back Mayor Malware for taking all those donations. I don't condone hacking back. That is not a legal activity. But for sake of a fictional world, wouldn't be a bad idea in my opinion. I want to see how they lean into the red team, and I think hacking back is how they're going to do it, but I don't know if they're going to take that direction because of the legality. So, what do y'all think the next days are going to be? See if anybody has good ideas. I know we were speculating some Wireshark at some point. I feel like they're good. There should be a Wireshark room one of these days. Do I know AWS enough to use it, or was I just following along? So as I stated in the beginning of the video, I'm not huge in the AWS environment. I actually know Azure more. I do know how AWS does things. Like I understood how S3 buckets work and what their IAM service is, but if they didn't predefine those commands for me, then I probably would have struggled to have written them myself, because I would not have known what fields to look at. I would have had to look at the raw JSON and figure out what they were defining and start narrowing it down from there. So thankfully they did provide those commands. I didn't have to write that myself. You didn't have to watch me struggle to write that myself. So short answer to your question, no, I did not know Amazon. I don't know Amazon. I did not know Amazon enough to be able to do that without the walkthrough. But that is the point of why we're here, right? I stated this at the beginning of the video, and I will say it again. I'm here to learn. This is a channel all about learning. Even if you're a veteran, it's always good to learn. And the more I learn, the more tools I have under my belt, the more useful I can be, and the better I can be at my job. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and close it out today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I would love to see y'all come back for the following days. We have day 8 tomorrow. It's already day 8, which shocks me. You're welcome, Jose. Thank you for tuning in. I love seeing y'all here. And with that, have a good day. And thank you very, very much for tuning in. See you later, y'all.